Today, our topic of discussion is it possible to mathematically model consciousness and how it will help us in the field of application in various other subjects? So, first, I want to thank Techno India University for allowing me to research on this field and also Team Bread and Code. We have CEO Shayan Mondul here with us, and also my mentor from Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Vijit Gain, sir, Professor Vijit Gain, with us here in this meeting. So, okay, so let's start. So first, I would like to define consciousness. Now, consciousness is such a random quantity, such a random uh, entity that it cannot be defined by using a single definition. So we would like to define it using three different fields. First, we would like to define consciousness biologically. So biologically, what is consciousness? It is basically the information gathered during adaptation as well as evolution. So it's like the information which we collect, it is embedded in our DNA or RNA for virus and other microorganisms. So that information is stored in chemical form. So that information results in consciousness to act. The basic example in case of microorganisms for consciousness is basic stimuli, to get away from light, to go towards the light. So that is a kind of consciousness. So but we are talking about such consciousness in elementary form. So now, apart from biological, we also have the spiritual consciousness. Now it is probably more common topic of spirituality. So in the realm of in the realm of spirituality, consciousness is like a physical quantity which exists for eternity. It's an eternal object in our mind that it exists throughout the universe, and we communicate with our inner self, uh, and that is what consciousness is, according to spiritual teachers and philosophers. Now let's come back to much more scientific aspect. What is consciousness? According to science, most scientific community believes that consciousness is more physical in nature. It's like a physical laws that are not yet to be understood, but the time of solving this problem, that to understand it fully, has come. So consciousness in the realm of science is an ingredient that define physical laws and actions in any space. So these are the three main definitions which we can argue in defining consciousness. Okay, so after defining consciousness, let us understand who are the first people, who are the first scientists and philosophers who attempted to model consciousness. The idea of modeling consciousness has been there for over thousands of years. It started with early Buddhists and early Buddhist philosophers and Zen, Tao philosophers. Even Hinduism also preaches consciousness. Now, that consciousness is much more spiritual in nature. They believe that consciousness, in its fundamental form, is spiritual in nature, and the force that affects consciousness is our actions. That is much more philosophy. So we are not concerned with the philosophical implications of consciousness. But the first scientific breakthrough about consciousness probably started with Plato. So Plato was the first person to argue whether consciousness is present throughout the universe, throughout the cosmos, and is it possible to model that consciousness in the cosmos. He did not actually model a complete model, he did not actually mathematically model, or he did not actually scientifically model consciousness. He just gave philosophical statements as well as scientific statements that consciousness in its form, in its crude form, could be modeled. So now let us start with no, and also in much later, in 17th century and 15th century, Sigmund Freud is much later. So Rene Descartes, in his book Philosophy of Philosophy and Principles, first described consciousness mathematically. He said that consciousness is like a huge field. It's like a wire mesh where it's like a chalkboard where anything can be possible, anything can be drawn out, any physical laws can be defined. So Rene Descartes mathematically formed consciousness, and later he actually uh, put forward a theory known as the body-mind problem, which we will going to discuss also in the next slides. So Rene Descartes actually is probably called as the father of modeling consciousness. Then later Sigmund Freud, he was a great philosopher. So Sigmund Freud argued that consciousness could be modeled, and it's not only consciousness. The consciousness has not only a just simple mathematical phenomena, it also reflects physical phenomena, natural phenomena occurring everywhere. So that is what consciousness is. So Sigmund Freud expanded on Rene Descartes' model and stated that consciousness within itself is mathematical as well as philosophical as well as scientific. That is why we probably find it very difficult to define consciousness, since it has so many aspects, it has so many fields encompassing. So that is why it is very difficult to understand or model consciousness. But attempts have been made to model consciousness, and it's a very important job to model consciousness. So let us now understand the body-mind problem, which we said that Rene Descartes modeled. So there's a famous statement, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. So it was written by Rene Descartes in Meditations on First Philosophy's book in 1641. So according to him, he believed that consciousness depends upon two factors. One, information which is already present inside us, and the second, information we absorb from outside. For example, say we are walking on a street and we see a tree, and we make a statement that this is a tree. Now the object tree, we absorbed it from outside, we get the information from the outside, but the recognition that it is a tree, that has been taught to us from inside. It is in our DNA, it's embedded. We learned it. So that learning comes from within, but the absorption of data, that is from outside. So that is a huge breakthrough in field of consciousness, because most models, all models we are going to discuss, we are mainly going to discuss two main models. So those two models are actually built on this foundation, that consciousness depends upon two entities: the inside learning, the self-learning, as well as the outside inflow of data. So yeah, so another important term while defining consciousness is qualia. Qualia is a very complex term. Philosophers has described qualia in a very complex way. So I'm going to just make it very simple. So qualia is just perception. Something exists. Why should it exist? That is these questions. Why should it exist? Why this object should be of interest to us? Why, what, when? So when this object exists. So these questions are perception, elements of perceptions. So these perceptions, we refer this perception as qualia of information. Uh, okay. So yeah, the qualia is the actually this perception. It is the very fact. It's the very heart of the mind-body problem. As you see, it's not only about the information which we get, which is inflowed from outside, and also the self-realization, but the qualia within the qualia, the perception within itself is a very hard. It's a very important problem, which probably argues with mind-body problem. Mind-body problem is is a very simpler model. It's very crude, but does not basically question why a object should exist and when it should exist or how it should exist. So these are the questions. These very important questions are not a part of mind-body problem. Yet the implications, it has been implicated in the mind-body problem by Rene Descartes, that qualia is a very important problem that we should be addressing in the further models. Okay, so our main discussion. Our main discussion is the argument that the consciousness, mathematical consciousness, can be modeled using three main theories. First theory is in 1990s, the OR-core theory, Penrose-Hameroff. Roger Penrose, famous mathematician who collaborated with Stephen Hawking in formulating singularity theorems and black holes and relativity theorems. But he also worked on the model of consciousness. He believed that consciousness is much more cosmic. It's not only within ourselves, it's also a part of the cosmos. So it's part of the universe. So he, along with the neuroscientist Stephen Hameroff, they together formed a theory known as the orchestrated objective reduction theory, or theory. That was the early ages, in 1990s. That was also a foundation for mathematically modeling consciousness. Then a revolutionary theory is Professor Shang Yinxing's 2008 model known as the homomorphic model. So we are going to argue about homomorphic model and its shortcomings, why it should not be the ultimate theorem, and also we are going to talk about the field model. This is a much more latest model. In 2018 it was introduced. The field model was introduced by Sanjay Bhushan. So so he argued that the consciousness is much more quantum mechanical in nature. It's much more related to minute senses, so small particles. So consciousness within itself is such entities are much more smaller. So field model is a very good model, yet it also faces some shortcomings. So we are in this, our main objective of this presentation is we are going to argue how all these three models have common shortcomings, and how can we possibly negate these problems in order to find a much more generalized model for furthering our studies. So without delaying much further, I would like to enter into the homomorphic model by Professor Shang Yinxing in 2008. So his model is basically a discrete analysis of information tokens. Now what he did is very simple. He said that sentences, for example, we form certain sentences that the same sentence, it is that I'm walking down the street and I'm seeing a tree, and he said this is a tree. So this is a tree. What he said, that all these words are formulated within our mind with the help of learning from inside as well as information from outside. So he formed a discrete analysis of these sentences using tokens. What tokens? Word tokens. So I think many people will be familiar with this idea, as it's a very common practice in data science, mostly in natural language processing. See, we are all familiar with bag of words. So that is a similar technique applied by Professor Shang Yinxing here. in homomorphic model of consciousness. So he argued that word tokens have certain values, certain effect on our mind. So these different word tokens have different values, different weightage. So he formed a discrete analysis using homomorphic group to define information system and information entities. The information entities can be objects. For example, the tree is our information entity. For a much larger sentence, say, I, along with another person, saw this tree on this road, on a particular road. So it's a long sentence, and there are more objects here, object of importance, and also we get a rough idea that where the tree is actually, spatial arrangement of the tree. So that is this is how the homomorphic model of consciousness works. It's a discrete analysis of each and every individual tokens, individual word group, in order, and then we analyze, is the person, is the entity addressing such statement or making such statement is conscious or not conscious. So a bit mathematical here, but I'm going to explain it much more simply. So, mathematically, a homomorphic group can be defined very simply. If there are two groups, say G1 and G2, a homomorphism, for homomorphism to actually occur, to actually take place in a group, then two functions along with the operation should lie in such a manner, in such a mathematical expression, such that we can correlate between the two data. There's each and every individual entity combined to form a unified function. You see, FA and FB are, say A and B are two entities belonging to any set, say X or Y. So these two entities can be combined together, unified together, using a single function. So that is homomorphism. Now, he argued that each and every entity is called as a system of entity, the information entity. Each and every entity, if we combine them using some operation, it could be plus, minus, anything, any operation. For actually in higher form of consciousness, in higher models, you will see that that is how all the operations takes place. It's probably much more complex. More products are there, more parameters are there. So we are not going to that parameters, we are not going to that products. We are just simply concerning that an operation, any kind of operation. For example, we are taking something from A to B. So that kind of operation. So any kind of operation happens between entities, say x1, x2, x3. These are all objects. So information entities. For example, tree could be a tree, could be a cup, anything, any objects, any physical objects as well as the data. So these data are combined together, unified together to form a single sentence. Now, is the sentence meaningful? That is the question. Is the sentence convey some meaning to any other person who is listening to the statement or reading the statement? Now, if it does, then we will say that a single function f, the big function f, combined with is basically f is nothing but, as you can see here, the f of x1 dot x2 dot x3. So this is to all together combined to form f. Then we say that f is a conscious system. That is, it has consciousness because the statement is meaningful not only to themselves but also to others. Now, consciousness. Now, there is another point here I want to convey here. That consciousness not only depends upon yourself or one's own objects, it also depends upon how other people, other entities perceive that same information. Is the perception almost equal? If it is almost equal, then we will say that yeah, that idea or that statement has some consciousness, has some consciousness in it. It is a conscious state. Okay, so let us understand how this model works with an example. Okay. So let us consider here is an example. So it's much better if I go stick to this example. So this example is the cup is on the table. It's a very simple stick, right? Now, what we did is we identified each and every tokens and we separated them. The cup, the table on is. So any random arrangement, you can make it in any random arrangement. So we just like the bag of words, we separated each and every word tokens and then performed a certain operation on it. Whether it could be many of any operation, sense operation. If in this case it will be probably sense operation, because is it is it possible that this statement is valid or not? Grammatically, if this statement is valid or not, because it's a statement. So here the cup is on the table can be split like function, whether the cup, this object, the cup is our object here. The cup, the table, it is another entity. There are two objects here, and then we have an idea that in which spatial arrangement the object is. It is on the table. So in the space, it is present on the table. So that conveys the sense that yeah, it is grammatically correct and conscious, as the cup is on the table. So it's meaningful. It is not only meaningful to the person who makes the statement, it is also meaningful to any observer, any listener, in case here it will be the listener or reader, who understands that yeah, the cup is on the table. But like any other model, this model also has some very important shortcomings. Now, these shortcomings we are going to address. So the limitations of this model is it's exclusively spatial. Now, why I say that it is exclusively spatial is that we cannot get in general view that whether the cup is on the table. So it's only specifies an arrangement within certain parameters, within certain space, but not within time. We don't understand of what is the time or the temporal significance of the sentence or the meaning of the data. So in that way, it's exclusively spatial. Then the argument and the observations is controlled by entities, information entities. See, the observation we made in the previous statement, the cup is on the table. It is completely dependent upon the entities, the cup and the table. It is not dependent on any other factors. The subject, it's like it is more oriented, object oriented, not subject, object oriented. So that is a shortcoming. It's a huge shortcoming. Now I'm going to say something. It's completely. I think this is the most important reason why this model is very old and it needs revision. Is the spatial or temporal perturbations. For example, any sense, any statement is subjected to change. Change is part of life. Change is part of any statement, any observation. So data cannot. Data is like it is not still. It is expanding, as well as the idea, the sense of the data. It could change depending upon the observer, depending upon the reader, depending upon the listener. So the idea that it is on the table, if someone hangs themselves, means hangs themselves vertically and they will look at it, they will not see that the object is on the table. They will see it will, according to their vision, their perspective, it will be like it's under the table or something like that. Means the idea with along with the due to the alignment of the observer, due to the alignment of the listener, the object will change. The spatial arrangement as well as the time, sense of time, that will also change. For example, uh, this is a simple test case that cup is on the table. Consciousness is not only just statements; it is also thoughts. It is also processes. For example, in our mind, in our conscious mind, we see something is moving. For example, a car is moving. We are subconsciously or consciously we are thinking that an object is moving, but the sense or the perception that an object is moving, the rate at which the object is moving could be different if we are in a different spatial or temporal arrangement, right? So this is a huge shortcoming to this model, because this model does not explain such kind of spatial temporal perturbations. Now, another important point that I would like to say is that that conscious paradoxes. There are several paradoxes. For example, I will go to the paradoxes much more detail in the later slides. But now I'm saying that conscious paradoxes are, for example, loops, time loops, spatial loops. That I'm walking. It's like I'm imagining that I'm walking a certain path, but I'm keep on walking. Keep on walking the same path for a certain time, again and again. Do these kind of models, these kind of loops, this kind of singularities, that's the right word, singularities, cannot be explained using this model. Now, another is no sense of dimensionality. You see, in the previous data, the cup is on the table, right? It's on the table. Spatially, we know that it makes sense that it is on the table. But in what dimension? We don't have any parameters defining that it is in an XYZ plane. It's a 3D model. We perceive that it's a 3D model. The qualia of information convey us that it is a 3D model, but it is not mentioned in the model that it's a 3D model. It does not signify that it's a 3D model or a 4D model, any kind of model. So the sense of dimension is not present in this equations or in this mathematics, in this mathematical model. So these are the shortcomings, these are the limitations which primarily renders this model old. Actually, that's the right word, old, and it obviously needs revision. So the revision was made in 2018 using the field interpretation of consciousness.
এটা কোন শুনছি
Yeah, anyone want to ask?
Start my video.
আরে এটা করে তোকে দেখা
এটা
যাবে
mute.
Hello,
এটা পার্টিসিপেন্টস হবে
hello,
এটা participants.
anyone
এইটা কি ভাষাটা
want to ask any
শেয়ার
questions?
কন্টেন্ট
Uh,
ঠিক আছে এটা কি মোর অপশন না এটা চ্যাট
Hmm.
hello, okay, so I'm continuing.
এটা কে পাঠাচ্ছে? Mute your mic, please.
Uh,
করে লেখা যাবে নাম
এটা mute করা আছে তো?
participants, please
আরে
mute,
তোকে বলবো
please mute to the, you will have enough time to ask questions. It's I will ensure that it's not a problem. So kindly mute. Yeah. So field interpretation of consciousness. It was presented by Sanjay Bhushan in 2018. So it's much more detailed, and it provides us an in general view that how can information consciousness or information qualia can be addressed using mathematics. How can perception be addressed using mathematics? So that's a huge improvement on the previous discrete models formulated by Inshi as well as Hammer of Penrose. So he said he combined two theories, two famous theories. One, Tonini's integrated information theory, and Hammer of Penrose's orchestrated objective reduction theory or ORCOT theory. He combined two theory and came up with a set of results. So the result was he formed a field theoretic view that he believed that consciousness is not only what Rene Descartes said was a wire mesh or a field, or it's like a chalkboard where we can draw anything. It is also a field. It also generates a certain field. And the information consciousness or the qualia, it could be any bit of information, bits, so computerized bits, any bits of information. It could be quantum, it could be, no, it is quantum mechanical in nature. That is, the information could exist. It could be like it is creational as well as destruction. So the information could exist or not exist at the same time. Now he also said that consciousness field within itself is infinite. So infinite space. So he introduced the infinite space time, the how space and time both being infinite. Okay, everyone can hear my voice, right? So let's continue with our theory. So Sanjay Bhushan actually, yeah, thank you, Shanda. Okay. So Sanjay Bhushan actually put forward field interpretation of consciousness. He gave us a field theoretic view, as just as I said. It's also, he also argued that the information within itself is quantum mechanical in nature. That's why consciousness is much more complex than just simply elements or external elements or objects. And he also gave us the idea that the consciousness field is infinite in nature, just like space-time. And also, unlike the previous model encountered by Professor Imshik in 2008, this model essentially the most essential point, essentially argues that the consciousness field is four-dimensional in nature. That's the maximum dimension, the four-dimensional in nature. But the explanation, most of the explanations were done in 3 dimensions. And this theory is also closely resembles the orchestrated objective reduction theory, or ORCOR theory, by Hameroff and Penrose. Here you can see a picture. Now, why this picture is important actually is this is how the consciousness field looks like. This is how space-time, infinite space-time looks like. It's like a topological graph which extends infinitely from a single point. Okay, so let's dive a bit deep into the field interpretation of consciousness, or the field theoretic model of consciousness. Okay, let's start with the mathematics. It's a very brief mathematics, and it's an elementary one. I know this might seem a bit difficult, but it's very elementary. We all studied that, or we all know that kinetic energy and potential energy, there are these two main kind of energy. If we combine these two energies, we get the total energy of any system. This we have studied for almost class 8 probably. So this is the basic foundation of the theory. He said that conscious information, the information entities, which he called qubit or quantum bits. We all know that from quantum computing. We are familiar with that. Quantum bits are special kind of bits, just like 0 and 1. But instead of 0 and 1, a quantum bit depends upon probability. At any certain probability, at any certain point, the quantum bit could be 0 or 1. It's either 0 or 1. It depends upon certain probability. So he believed that the information is probabilistic in nature. It's much more quantum mechanical in nature. So the quantum information traveling from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0, it could be both. So that is why we said that delta C 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. It actually means that the consciousness information within the consciousness field, the information is traveling from either 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. So that depends upon the summation or the addition of two conscious entities. That is C0, which means the consciousness state at 0 and consciousness state at 1. 0 and 1, if you feel like to understand what 0 and 1 essentially is, it is basically just a point in time, space and time, where an object is moving from one point to another. That's an information. It could be anything. It could be any bits of information from surrounding, from environment. So 0 and just 1 are just 2 points. But we are going to say 0 and 1. These are the fundamental qubit nature, because 0 and 1 are absolute. So 0 and 1. It's binary system. So 0 and 1. Now this information, this traveling of information from 0 and 1 within the consciousness field occurs over the space time. It is this phenomena happens in the stage which is our space time. That is the wire mesh put forward by the general theory of relativity of Einstein, that space and time are just together. They're not individual entities, but they are a single entity, which means fabric. It is like imagine it to be like a piece of cloth, but this piece of cloth is extended so hard. Yet, even though it is extended, even though the piece of cloth is extended, if an object falls on the piece of cloth, then it will bend because it's a piece of cloth. It's lightweight. So that is how space-time fabric works. So consciousness field, the traveling of information from 0 to 1 within the consciousness field occurs within that fabric of space-time, which is infinite. Now, since it's a continuous cycle of information, it's a continuous procedure, it's a constant process of information traveling from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0, depending upon the probabilities. We will integrate it, since integration is the summation of our continuous quantities. Instead of discrete, we have seen discrete analysis previously. Instead of discrete, we are conducting a continuous summation within the consciousness field. So we will say the consciousness field is basically the summation from 0 to 1 over C, where C is the consciousness function. It's a function or trajectory of trajectory or it's nothing actually. If you feel it's very easy to understand in this way, it's not a trajectory actually. It's the probability of occurring whether the particle is at stage 1, at state 1 or at state 0. So this probability is the probability function. So C is like a consciousness probability function. So for an information or an object moving along the closed loop path in a consciousness vector, which it is obviously a vector field, because direction is very important. The sense of direction matters in this field. So the integration, it's a closed loop integral. It's a closed surface integral, because we are just concerned with the space-time fabric in which certain space-time fabric in which the consciousness cycle or the consciousness activity is going on, the conscious activity is going on. So that field, so each and every consciousness field or functions are summed over F. F is another consciousness function. F over dr and dt. This dr and dt is nothing but inclusion of space and time. R is space and T is time. So that should be equal to 0, because the total energy of any system, if calculated, should be equal to 0, since no work is done. So that the energy loss is prevented. So we find that consciousness by default depends upon CST. Now CST, what is CST? S and T is space and time, as we know, and C is the consciousness activity or function. It's not only so, unlike the previous model which we have encountered, this model provides us 3 parameters. Time is important for understanding why something is conscious. Space is important for understanding why something is conscious, as well as the trajectory or the probability on which the consciousness activity is dependent. That is also important. That is the entity. So object as well as the spatial and temporal arrangement of the object is important to understand consciousness. So this mathematical implication is huge because it actually it actually conveys us that in what time the object is present, in what spatial arrangement the object is present, and what is the likelihood that the object would be going from one point to another. So this model answers these questions, but like all the previous model, this model also suffers from few irregularities, few shortcomings. So we are going to discuss about these shortcomings now. So the limitations of this model. Firstly, the most important limitation of the model is, again, this model absolutely does not describe singularities or perturbations, or the paradoxes like loops or for example loops or change, a certain change. And it also does not take in account that consciousness not only involves path as well as space and time, it also involves how many paths the information can travel, the parallel paths, and also from the perspective of different viewers. So that is also something that this model lacks. And also this model does not completely agree with the second law of information theory, which is, if you see the theory, as you can see right now, the information cannot be destroyed or created within a field. It can be manipulated. It's somewhat similar to the second law of thermodynamics, right? So that was the basic foundation from where the second law of information theory came up. So according to this information theory, information cannot be created or destroyed. But you see, in the model which we described, is the information going from 0 to 1. If the information moves from 0 to 1, then we get a sense that this object is moving from path 1, 0 to 1. So the probability is positive. So the idea of movement, that idea that it is moving from one point to another, is creational in nature. It is creation, it's positive. Whereas if we move from reverse, so 1 to 0, then it will be destructive. The information is getting lost or delete. It's very easy to understand. For example, you create a file. So when you create a file, you just create it, and then it occupies some space. So that is the creational information. Now, when we delete it, what happens to that information? It does not just simply free the memory. It's actually converted into other forms of energy and released into the free space. That is how the information works. That is how information travels. So this law, this theorem, this model does not specifically agree with the second law of information. So it's a major drawback. And also another limitation is that the dimension is the idea that consciousness is only 4 dimensional is not something which many physicists as well as computer scientists agree on. See, it can be, in the next slides I'm going to show that consciousness can also be 5th dimensional or multi-dimensional, for example, say 10 dimensional, which we are going to show in the next slides. So these are the limitations, these are the major shortcomings which really need to be addressed, because for a model to be generalized, for a model to be accepted by any field of study, these parameters should be questioned, these parameters should be solved, these problems should be solved in order to make that theory, they make that model a much more detailed and perfect. So the task at hand, what we need to do, what we are currently researching and what we need to come up with, the next model should include, the next big model which we are working on, that should include, first we need to understand the space-time anomalies like paradoxes. For example, like Penrose stairs, it's an infinite staircase, as you can see here, infinite staircase, and also other temporal loops. For example, here it's a famous example of the grandfather paradox. Go back in time, so it's a time travel mystery. So these kind of temporal paradoxes as well as spatial paradoxes, these paradoxes should be explained by consciousness model, because these kind of paradoxes, we come up with these kind of paradoxes in our subconscious or conscious mind every time. So such model should be questioned. Such model should question these paradoxes or theories. Now, another thing that we have to do, another task, is a huge task we need to do, is after formulating a generalized theory, we need to perform a computer simulation to collect data, so that we can collect data over several test cases and scenarios to prove that our theory, that our model is properly, it's proper, the foundation of that model is proper, and also it is absolute. Well, nothing is absolute actually. So more or less it's a generalized. So with the data we can prove that this theory is a much more generalized version of previous theories. So that is what we need to do. And also we need to form application based on the model we formulate. Because unless and what good is a theory? What good is a theory if we don't have application for the theory? So we need to come up with applications, so in order to basically use that theory in various fields of study. And also we need to possibly, we need to possibly further our model through research and studies. That's a much later objective. Primarily we have the first three main objectives at hand. Right? So yeah, this is something, another fact, another possible mathematical indication. Currently, most computer scientists as well as philosophers, not philosophers, physicists, believes that consciousness by itself could be non-dimensional. Even mathematics shows that consciousness could be non-dimensional. Why is that? Why I'm saying that is because, you see, if something is vacant, then only there are space in which you can create. So it's like a blank chalkboard. It's like a blank blackboard where you can draw anything. So since there are no dimension, it is crude. We can create as much dimension as possible for our thoughts. Now, the idea about dimension, I will show you that what I mean actually. Previously, I told you that they gave a four-dimensional. The latest model gives us a four-dimensional view. See, here is the four-dimensional view, where why it is four-dimensional. You see, the time is one, the spatial XYZ axis, the spatial arrangement is one, and then there is time. Now, time can be divided into present, past, and future. But the consciousness model can also support fifth dimension, which means I am not only perceiving an object or an idea that it is happening in this this period of time as well as in this space, but also I am understanding, I am calculating alternately that what are the alternate scenarios of that event. That is what fifth dimension is. Fifth dimensional model basically reflects this idea that not only it is possible to understand or perceive in which time and space an object or an event is taking place, but also all possible scenarios that the event could take place. So this model is fifth dimension. But not only that, it's the fun part begins is that the consciousness consciousness also supports the 10 dimensional or n dimensional. That 10 is just a number, so with n dimensional space-time problems, you see, that means we are not only understanding how many possibilities there an event can take place, but we are also understanding that in the flow of time, within the flow of time, all possible scenarios. Let us assume that time is a straight line. So if time is a straight line, then each and every scenarios taking place in that timeline, and also all other possible cases. We are analyzing that much of information in our brain. So if we analyze that much of information in our brain, so it is likely that consciousness could be multidimensional. But if that is true, then if it is multidimensional, then it also arises, then why can, is it possible that if it is multidimensional, then is it possible that an entity or a machine which hasn't learned anything, even as a human being, if you haven't learned anything, well, it is not likely to occur in human being, because human beings learn just in the just from the moment of their creation. You see, that is in our DNA. It's embedded in our learning, as we have already said. So, for example, a machine. We are arguing that a machine, if we don't teach the machine, if you don't teach if you don't teach any information or provide any information to the machine, is it able to understand? Is it able to consciously think? No, it cannot, because they don't have any information. They don't have any data to process. So that's why they cannot. So therefore, consciousness, that doesn't mean that it cannot be conscious, because the potential that it could be conscious, that still remains. So therefore, consciousness could be non-dimensional. There is no dimension should exist in the consciousness field. Now, that is a big argument. I know it's a challenge. It's a tough thought, but this is what the mathematics is implicating. This is what most physicists and computer scientists are working on. But we can get the answer for sure if we start simulating on a properly built model. That is why our whole research works on the fact, that we can come up with a model which will properly define these factors. So if we properly simulate, then we can understand, is it non-dimensional or is it multidimensional? So that's a point that we all should think. Okay. So now, areas of study where consciousness model, well, our consciousness model can be very useful. First of all, any kind of behavioral studies. For example, psychology, economics, politics. Consciousness model will change the course of these subjects, because entities, human beings, decide what to buy, what to sell, and also sentiments. For example, it is social media sentiment. We are already performing sentiment analysis using Twitter data, Reddit data, Pinterest data, and all other social platform data. So our consciousnness model will also improve the existing sentiment analysis models. So it's a huge process. And another important area of study where consciousness model could be useful is artificial intelligence. Now, current artificial intelligence, they are smarter. They are obviously smarter. They can do a lot of tasks. But the major threshold that they all have to suffer, all artificial intelligence systems designed currently or current models have to suffer, is the machine cognition. Cognition is not that accurate, because let's not argue about it, because we all agree that an artificial system is not similar to a human being, or not same as a human being. So it's much more, human beings are much more complex. There are several trillion neurons in our brain, several trillion neural network in our brain. So the machine cognition capabilities will also reduce with the help of our consciousness model. So artificial intelligence will become much more smarter with greater optimization capabilities. Okay, so the final point. So these problems we could recalculate, we can re-simulate those research problems, and we can find a better result for these problems. So our consciousness model can help with that. So that is a big area of study right now. So we are currently researching on that. We are currently researching on a fundamental model that can explain, that can address these problems. We can apply these problems to these fields in order to understand and gather much more data on the present models and as well as our consciousness. Okay, so wrapping up, this is our end. So we are currently working on improving and improving the generalized version of a mathematical model for consciousness. I would like to invite every one of you to join us. We have set up our lab in ResearchGate. We named the Institute of Mathematical Computational Social Network Studies. So our lab head is Professor Avijit Gain. He was there with us a few minutes earlier due to before the network discrepancies. Professor Avijit Gain is from Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Technical University. We are also collaborating with Team Bread and Code. We have the CEO from Team Bread and Code here with us, Mr. Shan Mondal. Do you want to say anything?
No.
Anything at all? So I can make you the presenter. Hello.
Hello. No. Please continue with your presentation. I'm okay with it.
No, it's almost over. So if you want to say anything to our audience, you can say.
So if anyone wants to join and contributing in sense of cognizance, in sense of machine learning and something stuff, they can continue with us, contact with us. And apart from that, if anyone wants to join, interested in open source contributions or research on something research oriented programming, research oriented workings, they also can contribute us and we can collaborate with him or her about this project. Thank you.
Yeah, so our research is completely funded and is completely undertaken by Techno India University, so it's not a problem. Anyone can join. I'm actually requesting everyone to come and study this topic because this is a very important topic. As you can see, the implications of this study. This study will basically help us to understand not only the secrets of the universe, but also why we behave in not in our behavioral study, in our in case of in terms of genetics, in terms of data science. It's a huge topic and it will help us to understand these questions. So it's a core mathematical computation subject. So I am inviting everyone to come and join with us in our lab. So thank you everyone for joining. If anyone have any questions, please ask. Any questions from the audience?
Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for inviting to this session. I'm very much excited and I learned a lot in the session.
Thank you.
But generally, I have two questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Those both are basically related, so I'll ask them one by combinedly, so you can answer them at one go. Okay.
Yeah.
And the first question is that imagine a baby born,
Yeah.
with disability. The disability is nothing but she has all five senses disabled. Let us imagine that all the five senses are disabled.
Yeah.
Then how could you explain? Is she conscious or she is not conscious in terms of time and space, because that is not possible. And the second question is that let us say the time is possible. Okay, let us say the consciousness could be projected in terms of space and time. But coming to that part, is our measurement is consistent or inconsistent? Because if I say a centimeter, it's nothing but some sort of titanium rod in a museum that is considered as a centimeter, and the same with the time. So is our measurement of time consistent enough to actually model consciousness in terms of some mathematical model? So that was those were my two questions. Like I was wondering all the session I was wondering about these two things.
Yeah. This is a very good question. Thank you for asking such a good question. So actually the answer is, you see, even if the baby, even if the person, any person, he or she is disabled with all five senses, I know it is impossible to collect external data, but the genetic information, it is still there. Now that genetic information within the mind, it obviously at least produces the aging, the constant aging, that obviously produces a temporal effect, that is a time effect on the baby.
Yeah, yes.
And now when time exists, then the baby can imagine her parents or something in her mind, if they are taught. Obviously, if they might not be taught, but genetically she has been taught. For example, if the baby faces heat or something like that, then she will obviously come back, or she will at least get a sense that this object, that the heat is coming from a certain distance. So the spatial entity, the space will also come into action. So space and time both will come into action, because uh, because of the genetic information shared with the baby from the parents. So that is the point. That is the point of. Anything else you want to ask?
I mean, are you allowed, the things that you are referred in your research paper or all these studies, you refer
Yeah.
to some other scientist or, I mean, all these are like peer reviewed publishings, right?
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of discussion. I mean, I'm not like saying that you go and read all those, but I'm just saying that there is a very long and philosophical and as well as scientific discussion in terms of subjective, like in terms of subjective in our our Hindu texts. Like
Yeah.
I can point you to two of such concepts. Like they say, like in our text they say that there is a word called as pratibodha viditam, that the thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stays with you most of the time. And they say that the base of the consciousness is nothing but awareness. So if you want to
Yeah.
understand,
Exactly.
yeah, that is what it is. And they refer to it as the main base construct. So in all these models they are more concentrated on the cognitive behavior on or modeling
Exactly.
thing. But
Exactly. So
modeling awareness should be a right term, I guess. I do not know.
yeah,
I'm just
exactly. Modeling. You see why it's important. See, in our Veda, there's not only in our Veda, the consciousness is also present in our Upanishads, especially in
yeah.
the Katha Upanishad. In Katha Upanishad, it's a part of Upanishad. So in that Upanishads, there are two. It's probably the 22nd one. So that in that Upanishad, there is a statement where
Naisha,
Lord,
Naisha,
where
I think
yeah,
it's the statement. Naisha Tarkena Matirapaneya. That says that it's beyond logic and it's beyond human comprehension. Like
yeah, it's beyond human comprehension, but this is because of lack of information. Now
exactly.
consciousness, yeah, awareness, when can we become aware? Unless and until we gather information. Knowledge makes person aware. So knowledge is basically the information present in the nature. It could be from the nature, it could be from someone else. So that information, some other entity. So that information actually formulates our awareness or learning. So that learning or awareness results in consciousness. So that is why we are researching on a model that can actually understand and perceive such kind of such kind of model which supports the presence of external awareness and internal awareness both. So yeah.
And anybody could like join and contribute to that. I mean, you were saying that, but I was like just to make sure.
Yeah, anyone. It's not a. I actually we are looking forward to have more researchers on this field, and also there is another thing I forgot to mention. So in our we are also collaborating with some foreign professors also. You see, Professor Yin Xing also contacted me about on the research we are doing. So his model, he also stated that yeah, that his model needs revision, and he's also willing to work with us. So it's a huge opportunity for everyone to work with such collaborators. So it's a good opportunity. That's all. Yeah. So anyone else have any question?
Yeah, thank you for answering.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Any question? Anyone else? Okay, so that means it's over. So nobody wants to ask any questions. Okay. Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone. So let's meet in the next meetings, in the next upcoming meetings. Next sessions we'll have on our topic and much more topic on related to what research we are conducting in our lab. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.